Today we're talking about the three Christmas ghosts haunting so many freelance coaches and facilitators: undercharging, over-delivering, and ironically, under-committing, all in the name of flexibility. I'm Riley, this is Ped, and between us we've spent over 30 years and $100,000 of our own money building our own coaching and consulting businesses, and now today we've worked with more than 100 different coaches and consultants. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to break free from the habits that keep your business feeling chaotic instead of free. And we'll unpack all of that through the ghosts of clients past, present, and future.
Cool.
Without further ado,
Should we jump in?
let's get into it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start off with the ghost of clients past. And one thing you'll notice about this ghost and all the other ghosts as well, they're not really about the clients. It's really about us, our own mindsets when we work with clients. And so this first ghost, the ghost of Christmas past, it's that people pleaser. It's kind of a fear in disguise. And I'll take you back to a time, and it was around Christmas Eve, or just before Christmas Eve, where I realized this because it was a project that spanned between November, December, and until sort of January and February. And so I was there working really hard, and I know that I'd left my job for that kind of freedom and flexibility, but somehow I ended up working for someone who was the toughest boss ever, myself, right? And the expectations I have on myself, and also what was driving that, because this particular project was working with a consortium of large UK employers, and it was a really exciting project, lots of prestige, and in the I guess the the mindset of wanting for them to like me and like the work that I do, and also my colleague, we over delivered. We were giving them things they didn't even ask for. We'd done projects before, and we're like, you know what? Just let's give them this session plan for this kind of workshop, and let's make sure that they've got this resource so that if they did want to do this thing further on, they've got that. And we did that, and they took those, they accepted those things, but it wasn't like a, whoa, thank you so much. It was, sure, thanks. And I know that afterwards, when my collaborator and I were doing a bit of a kind of a debrief, a bit of a retrospective, we worked out that our effective day rate was in like the below hundreds of pounds, or like it was in the hundreds of pounds, like way below what we had budgeted for, despite the fact that in total this was a five-figure contract. And so, yeah, this goes people pleaser, not our best of friends at all.
Yeah, and that's within a single project. And just to recap what I'm hearing from you, make sure I got all the points right here. You had basically a giant contract, a big opportunity, and then the you know scope creep. There's too many things packed in. You basically over delivered on this single project, which effectively means you were undercharging. There's just too much work for too little pay.
Yeah,
Is that a fair
fair to say.
recap?
And in a way,
Yeah.
it's a slightly different thing to scope creep, I'd say. So we hear about scope creep all the time, and the clients asking you, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" This was
Mm.
the opposite. The clients didn't ask us for this stuff. It was scope seep. We were like seeping this, like making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, this is really one of those pieces where and maybe it comes with a bit more experience and confidence in what you do, but the shift for me was recognizing that when a client has hired you to do something for a particular scope, that's what they want from you. If they wanted any more, they would have asked for it. And so just keep to the scope. That was the big lesson for this particular Christmas ghost, to remind me not to over deliver and therefore undercharge.
Makes total sense. And I mean, it obviously makes sense to us. I mean, I know you have gone through this before, as you were just explaining, but so have many of our clients. So if if this is hitting home for you as a watcher listener, especially that bit about kind of like the over delivering, undercharging, trying to keep everyone happy, this is exactly the kind of thing that we work on inside Network and Sell, which is our space for coaches and consultants who are ready to stop waiting for referrals and start creating clients on demand
Mhm.
without complicated tools or needing massive audience. And inside, you'll also learn how to position yourself as the go-to expert, you could say, and build an audience that tells you what they will buy before you actually offer it, which is pretty cool. And actually maintain a predictable pipeline with simple, I mean, super simple weekly habits. So you get the content, the templates, the weekly calls, and a community of people who actually get it. And you can start for $0 for 7 days.
Woo!
So you can actually feel the difference for yourself. With that said, speaking of like the over delivering or undercharging, I feel like there's a difference here between like a single project and then multiple ones. So maybe let me ask you, Ped, what's the difference between saying yes to everything versus saying yes to everyone?
Well, this is this is definitely the ghost of Christmas present, right? This is the ghost of always being on, and this is where when we talked about flexibility at the top of this podcast around, we leave our corporate jobs to have flexibility, and I mistook flexibility to mean saying yes to every single potential client. So there was one time I was juggling three different projects: remote comms training for a tech startup or scale up, it was an experiential retreat for social workers working with young advocates in Luton, a city in the UK, just north of London. And I was also
Thanks for
designing,
clarifying.
yeah, exactly right. And I was also designing the learning product, learning part of an ethical investment app. All pretty cool projects, if I'm going to say so myself. It was, it was my flexibility. I can do all of these different things, but at the time, I remember that task switching was completely draining. Not not only because of the task switching, but because the projects were so different and demanded so many different uh, different things from me. The each client had a different cadence of how they want to work with me and my team, and my collaborators. Each project just required me to be in a very different headspace. So designing a comms training package is very different from learning and figuring out how to present learning material on an app and like scroll, how people scroll through things and all these different things, which I was breaking the mold a bit in terms of what I had done before and learning new things for these different projects. So yeah, I completely committed to these projects, thinking I was being flexible. But what I didn't do was do any business development at all in that time. I just didn't have the headspace for it. And so once all these projects had gone, I then had no work for months and months and months, which is around the time I met you, Riley. Side point. But yeah, this is that ghost that is a sneaky one because it seems like being always on and being in demand is a good thing, but not so much from my experience.
Yeah, you kind of that headspace is just it's a big one for me in that so it's almost the difference between working on your business versus working in your
Yeah, yeah,
business
that's a
as
good way
well,
of thinking
right?
about it.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, you need to have the headspace to actually go beyond. And really, I think that's where um, that word that we mentioned a couple of times, flexibility, I think really becomes like a trap in a way. Um, because I think as freelancers, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like if we went back to, uh, I don't know, 10 years ago, Ped, I'm not sure exactly the time frame we're talking here, but um, flexibility, if we were to talk to younger Ped about flexibility,
I'll
what
take the
would
beard off. Yeah.
take the beard off, get rid of the kid, get rid of the wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Just yeah, go back in time. And but I mean, for anyone, that word I think can carry a lot of weight, and I would imagine that for freelancers, whether yeah, coaching, facilitating, consulting, that feels like a very attractive place. Like it's a place you want to be. That flexibility, that freedom. But for me, I feel like it's really worth defining and getting clear and differentiating like what that actually means. And I always think of Jocko Willink, which I don't know if he's on YouTube as much anymore, but he's got some books and podcasts
Yeah.
and things. And I'm pretty sure I'm attributing it to him correctly that he said discipline equals freedom.
Okay.
And I think so. The idea of flexibility, being able to, go on a vacation on a whim,
Mhm,
or work when you want to work, or all those different things that we think about. Um, What it isn't though is like flexible doesn't mean formless or
Mm,
shapeless or structureless.
yeah,
Like otherwise it'd just be an amorphous blob, right? That's not really what we're talking about with flexibility. And I kind of almost think of um so actually you're I know you've recently been visiting family, and so in
different
California,
background.
and I think about yeah, I think about the earthquakes in California,
Hmm.
and if you were to have a structure that is like earthquake proof, it needs to have some flexibility. But if you think of like a building and like it is literally called a structure, like it still has like clear boundaries and a strong foundation,
Yes.
and steady stable ground, and so like without that structure it would just be like a pile of raw materials that are not helping anybody. Like you still need to have that foundation and that
Yeah.
basis. And so I think it's just important to like yes, flexibility is a wonderful thing, but it like we don't want to over index here. Like
Yeah.
you still need to have that stability. Is
Yeah.
that making sense?
Totally making sense. And as you were saying that, it made me think, when you asked me what would 10-year-old a 10-year-old Ped think that, what would 10
That's a
year old
totally different question.
think? And I wonder whether there's something around, and then maybe this is related to the next ghost as well. But there's something around being a freelancer, which is what I was saying. That was the person that was saying yes to all of these different gigs. Like the gig
Mm,
economy, right? It's been used
yep.
in so many different contexts now. So I'm saying yes to these gigs, and actually, should I talk about the next ghost? So we move on to the ghost of Christmas future, because
Yeah, go for it.
if the we had the ghost of Christmas past that lived in our past, and the ghost of Christmas present lives in our workload in the present. The ghost of Christmas future is a ghost of what ifs, right? So there's a part of it, and it's very related to what was happening in these three, this example I gave of these three different projects. I was saying yes to all these things to be flexible, but what I wasn't doing is committing to something, and if I just really play on that structure metaphor that you used, Riley. So this particular house I'm in right now in California, my it's the second house that my parents-in-law had here, because there was another house that collapsed during an earthquake. And I was having a chat with my father-in-law. Apparently, the beams, the structural beams in this house go down something like, I don't know, however many feet into the hillside, which is where this house is on. So that kind of gives that kind of that structure. And when it comes to the ghost of what if, like that future ghost, it's really about committing to something, because I had got to a point where I knew that niching was going to, people were telling me that I needed the niche, but I always felt that it was going to box me in. And yet during the pandemic, it, I was almost like forced to niche. I niched by mistake. I was doing a lot of digital transformation for charities. Things just got a lot easier to pitch, things were easier to sell and deliver, because we weren't reinventing the wheel each time. And I realized that
Yeah,
this is actually like building those, like the deeper foundations into the hillside, right? It was this
yeah,
solid kind of beams keeping my business there. And there was still some structure. I was able to create some more tailored or custom and tweaked offers for those clients. But that was a bit of an eye opener. And just to link it back to being a freelancer and being a business owner, this was also when I realized that all of my other gigs were freelance gigs. But once I started to create systems, processes, resources that I could reuse, that's when I realized that I'm actually now a business owner, able to offer value beyond just me. And
so let me pause you right there, Ped, just to like shape this up
yeah,
for maybe for people listening, right? So we talked about like overworking, undercharging, like two sides of the same coin within a single project. Got
yeah,
it. That's a no-no.
no,
um, and then kind of more of the same is like doing that even if you're within scope, let's say, but saying yes to everyone and everything. Well, you're also stretched too thin, just in a different way. Also a no-no. Don't do that either. Learn from Ped's mistakes. I don't make any mistakes. They're all Ped's mistakes.
These are all my mistakes.
they, they, they're, but so now you're talking about um, this like the foundations and really focusing, well, narrowing your focusing in. And if again, like going back to maybe we can go all the way back to 10-year-old Ped, I don't know, but going back in time, if we try to like sit back in that seat, put those shoes back on, like what kept you initially from narrowing your focus? Like you're just explaining, like logically this all makes sense,
Yeah.
that like if I narrow my focus, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of benefits, and we can get more into that in a second. But like, what was the sticking point initially from not wanting to do that in the first place, when
Yeah.
logically like makes
Yeah.
tons of sense?
The journey that I went on with that, which maybe some of the listeners or watchers might resonate with, is
Hmm.
when we start off doing the work that we do. First of all, we're fresh. We don't know exactly what we like and what we don't like, and so in a way, it makes sense to try a little bit of everything. And eventually, once you've tried a little bit of everything and you've had success working with lots of different types of clients, at least for me, at that point, it became a well, I really enjoy doing this, and I really enjoy doing that, and I got value from this, and I've got value from that, and even when you and again, I'll just speak for myself. When it got to the point where had, I needed to decide, I just couldn't. I couldn't make a decision because there was everything had pros and cons around. Do I do this or do I do that? If I say yes to this, I say no to that. What for me, like I said, the pandemic was an eye opener because it forced me to niche for at least 2 years, very specifically. And I was still doing it. Maybe that was like maybe 80% of what I did, and the 20 other percent ended up becoming what we now do. Um, but it was a moment where I realized, well, I've built these systems, I've built these processes. I'm doing something that I fell into accidentally. What would it be like to be more intentional about that decision now? And it was one of those things that was required some soul searching, and like with most things, like our clients experience this as well. It was just right in front of my face all along. It was like just do this thing, and that's probably for another podcast. But that's the journey I went on. I don't know if that's similar to you. I know it's not. I know it's not similar to what you did, Riley. But you kind of you took a slightly different path.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can relate to. I think there's that like kind of FOMO aspect, right, of not wanting to be boxed in, not wanting to miss out on opportunities, and I think almost every entrepreneur can relate to that. And I definitely made a career of being a generalist to some extent, and so uh, I wouldn't say I regret that because I think I learned a lot from it, but even within that, I was also somewhat specialized. So I was kind of a Swiss Army knife in a way for all of my clients. And I started off super niche, to be clear. So I'm a mental performance coach, sports psychology background. Like that was super niche. Moving on from that, though, what I'm talking about is when I got into operations, working as an operations consultant. And that's, again, when we met, and I was working with a bunch of different coaches, authors, speakers, building out kind of like the tech stacks and just all the behind the scenes stuff. If you want to know what the ins and outs of a solopreneur business looks like, I can tell you all about it. But as wide as that felt, like skill set wise and all the things I was learning, at the same time, I was still very specific on the
Yeah,
kind of person, like almost completely unintentionally, but the kind of person that I was working with. And because I was clear on that, like it made word of mouth easier. And
yeah,
I didn't really know much about like sales and marketing and all those kinds of things, business development at that point. But I did get over time a bit more specific on the kind of work that I did want to do versus the kind of work that I didn't. So for anyone like super early on, or just starting out, or they don't even know what they don't know,
they don't
they don't
know.
know what they want. I mean, then sure, like try lots of things. Like that's kind of what I did. But I think you hit a certain point where if you want to go beyond this plateau and break through the ceiling, there's only so much time in the day. Like
Mhm.
you only have so many resources, so much energy, so much money, time, whatever those resources are. you do kind of have to narrow the focus eventually. Just like that, like the magnifying glass analogy, right? Like there's only so much sunlight. You got to get that spot right, or else like you're not creating more sunlight. it doesn't it doesn't happen. That's not in your control. The thing that is in your control is the magnifying glass and like where your focus is and how narrowed it is.
Yeah. And when you do narrow your focus, I know that you'll know this because we work together, but things become so much we can get a lot done much quicker because we have a productized program that we don't need to reinvent the wheel each time. We have productized processes, everything from client acquisition to client fulfillment. We've got all the and everything around it. No, we've still got some ways to go, and we know we're all working on projects to make that more efficient and more effective. But it also means that we can delegate parts of our workload to other people in a way that you couldn't do that if you're just freelancing and doing a different gig each time. So this is the other piece which we haven't touched on, but it's probably worth mentioning is you can have more of an impact that way because if you're not having to reinvent the wheel and you're just like in your, just creating mode each time, then you can be with clients more. You can just use your time more effectively for higher value activities. And I was realizing this yesterday when I was chatting with my wife's uncle around this. I was like, doing all these systems and processes because actually, ultimately, my time is better spent with clients doing more one-to-ones where we can and more kind of group calls where we can. We've been doing workshops recently. And so those are the things I want to do, but I don't want to be like reinventing the wheel each time. So that's the for me flexibility and freedom has come from narrowing the focus, structuring, and not over delivering, but making sure our clients get what they wanted.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So past, present, future. I think we covered all the. There's no other ghosts that I'm
I
missing,
think
are we?
that's it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. What other time dimension have we missed? But in true Dickensian fashion, and these ghosts aren't here to haunt you at all. I hope that's been made clear throughout this episode. But they are here to show us what is possible because freedom and flexibility is not this Christmas miracle that you wake up to on Christmas morning. It's the future that you create when you stop repeating the mistakes of the past. Change your habits, change your story, and change the whole business that you have.
So I'll say if this episode sparks something for you, just make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all the normal things. Helps us out a ton as well as the people who have yet to find us. Or you can join our newsletter if you haven't already. That's where we share more behind the scenes tools, templates, honest stories, maybe some sexy bonuses and giveaways from
Sexy
time to
bonuses,
time.
huh? Cool.
And that's it's all just to actually help you put all this stuff into practice. So with that said, see you on the next one.
Bye.